Hello, fellow photographers. Welcome to tonight's Redlands Camera Club presentation. We are delighted to have Hazel Meredith with us. Hazel began teaching in 2007. She is the author of two ebooks on working with textures and has released two creative courses. She and her husband produced the virtual creative photography conference with attendees from around the world. Hazel loves the creative aspect of photography and post-processing, especially the use of textures and software to create unique images. She is actively involved with the photographic community, and in the fall of 2020, she was the recipient of the Ashbrook Award for Digital Imaging Instruction from the Photographic Society of America. Please welcome Hazel Meredith.
Thank you, Cheryl. Hey, everybody. Nice to be with you this evening. It's a late evening for me. I'm in Tennessee, so it's quarter after 10 at this point. Um, but I promise I won't nod off. Tonight we're going to talk about working with gradients and gradient maps and the difference in those. So I am going to, while I'm teaching, I'm going to turn my video off because I'd rather you watch what I'm doing than me. It's much more interesting. I do welcome questions at any time. So feel free to either unmute yourself, or if you rather type it in the chat box, I have that open as well on my second monitor. So, please do ask for any questions at all. All right, so let's get started. So there are several ways we can apply gradients and gradient maps. So the first one is a gradient tool, which you find on the left toolbar in Photoshop. And you would manually add a new blank layer for the gradient. And this would allow us to add a gradient to an image. However, we cannot go back and change the colors of the gradient once it's applied. You would need to delete the layer and then re-add a new one. A gradient applies color to your image like a paintbrush over the top of the image. And you'll see what I mean by that as we get into the projects. The gradient fill adjustment layer is my preferred way to do it. And you access that through your adjustment layers panel, the little black and white circle at the bottom of your layers panel, and you would choose gradient. This adjustment layer gives you the ability to change the gradient and move the gradient around on the layer. It also automatically applies a layer mask to the layer for you. So if you want to mask part of the gradient off, it's easy to do that. It's still applying the color as a wash over the image with no distinction between bright and dark areas. The scale controls the feather of the blend between the two colors. And again, you'll see that as we demo. And then a gradient map adjustment layer utilizes the foreground and background colors to create the gradient, although presets and custom gradients can also be used. A gradient map is actually mapping the color values in an image, the 0 to 255, to the tone or color value we want to set it to. So for an example, you could create a black and white image or add toning to an image to give it the look of a sunset or like a sepia tone or anything like that. So I'm going to show you some projects with both of these, with gradients and gradient maps, and you can see how they work and how you can use them in your own work. All right, so let's get to the good stuff here. Close that. I've got my Photoshop open. So I'm going to open up my first image, and I'm working with two monitors as well. So I'm just double clicking my images from my other monitor to bring them in to Photoshop. So with this image, this was a cell phone shot I took the morning of one of my workshops, a farm that I like to go to. And this deer just decided to stroll on through. And it was a foggy morning, so I got this nice soft background. And I wanted to add just a little bit more warmth to it. Even though it's a very warm image, I really wanted it to have that kind of golden hour look. So we're going to start with the gradients first. So I'm going to go down here to my black and white layer adjustment selection, and I'm going to choose gradient. This is one of the few that is not in the adjustment panel that you see up at the top. So when you first open it, it's going to just apply a random gradient, and this one is actually based on my foreground color. But that's okay, because we're going to go ahead and change that. So the way we select our gradient is just click on this color bar here. And then you could say, I have a bunch of presets. I have a lot of my own sets, and I have also some that I've imported from other sites and things. And then you do have some basic ones that come with Photoshop. So Basics 2 has, quite a big selection in here. But for this one, I've actually created a gradient of my own, and I have a folder with things in here. And we're going to use this yellow, golden yellow one. So we're going to just select that. And now we can see that it's applied a darker kind of orangey yellow, and this was my lighter color. And I actually want this to be reversed because I want the darker color at the top. So I'm going to say OK on this panel. But before I close this, I'm going to click on reverse. And that's going to flip the color so that the darker is at the top. And then to apply this, first we're going to say OK. And I always let it align with layer, so it's going to fill, the entire image with the colors. And if you wanted to angle the color, say we wanted more of a diagonal, you can use this little line and just kind of angle it. And you can see now it's more of a upper left to lower right rather than straight across. And you can also always type a number. So I'm just going to set it back to 90 for now. We're going to say OK. So now the way we make these colors work, it's, if any of you work with textures, which is one of my favorite things to do, the way we blend the two layers together is to change blending modes and opacity. So our blending modes are right here where it says normal. And for this one, I'm going to go to soft light. And as you run through them, you can see what each one would do with this particular gradient. So I'm going to use soft light. And I'm also going to bring back the opacity just a little bit to about 80%. Okay, so if we do a before and after, so there's our before, where we thought it was nice and a warm image, but now with that gradient, we've really warmed it up and given it that nice glow. And again, you can always pull it back if it's a little too strong. You can dial it into your own preference. And if I wanted to mask something off here, which in this image I wouldn't, but it does automatically apply that layer mask. So just like with any other adjustment layer, you could paint with black to hide that gradient from anywhere that you wanted to. So I'm going to show you too quickly while we're in this, how to bring in a new set of gradients if you wanted to import some. So it's similar to importing brushes and other things in Photoshop. You can go over here and just click on the import button, and that will open up your browser. And in this case, it went to where I have a set already. This is one of my own. And you would just select that. It's always going to be a GRD file. You would just click on it once, say load, and it will add it to the bottom of your palette. And then you can take it from here, and if you wanted to move it around, you can click it and drag it. If you see the blue square, if I drop it there, it's going to drop it inside of that folder. So if I went to miscellaneous, it would be inside that folder. If you wanted to move it between folders, you want to move it so that you just get that single blue line, and then that would just move it up in the stack. So you can, like put all of my own together up here, and then within some of these, like Resource Boy, he has a ton of gradients, and his are all free as well. In my blog that I do twice a week, on Sundays I give away free textures, and on Wednesday I call it Around the Web, and I include articles and tutorials I find online that I think are helpful, and also a freebies category. And I know in the past I've listed quite a few of his products in there. So you can also go to his website and find all of those. So I'm going to delete that one because I already have this in here. So let's just right click it, and we're going to delete that group.
I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned that you make your own gradients. What's your process
Yes.
for doing that?
For a lot of these, I will sometimes take an image and choose colors like take a sky shot, say these are like my sky gradients. So I may take an image of a sky and then choose the color point and select colors right from an image. Otherwise, you can just click on the color stop and then click in your color box and say, I didn't like that orange, it's maybe too dark. You can even change a gradient. You could, lighten that color up a little or change it to a different tone. So you can just select your colors from the color picker. And you'll see some of the gradients that I use that I've imported may have more than 3 color stops. Sometimes there's, 5 or 6 or 7, depending on what the person was looking to do when they created it. But all you have to do is just click the color box and click here. And if you wanted to add another color stop, just click under the line and they'll give you another color stop that you can add, a different color with. So you can really customize gradients as well to what you need for your particular project. So you can see it kind of goes orange to yellow to orange in this case. And I see a question pop up. I'll answer that right now. So once you have this done, Mina asks, how do you then save it? So you'll see in here it says custom. I can just click in here. Well, why is it not letting me do that? Let's say okay and go back. Oh, I had to close the color picker. You can click right in here and I can say, I'll just put orange test. And if you wanted to go into a particular folder, make sure you have that folder open. Okay, so I'm going to put it in here for this class. That's why there's a bunch of these, because I've demonstrated this before. And once you have it named, just click new, and there you go. It actually didn't go in that folder. It went below it, but I can just click it and add it to that folder. So it will always add at the bottom of your palette. And that's all there is to it. You can name it anything you want. So now if let's click here, we click back, you can see that's the name that I typed in there. And then you can save it in your own kind of a folder. Did I show how I got multiple colors? Yeah, you can just, click in your color stops. And if you wanted to add another color stop, say we wanted one over here, you just click right under that bar and it will add it. And then you can choose your color picker and choose the color, say, okay, now we have a bright yellow there. Okay. Any other questions on that one? All righty. So that's one way that you can use a gradient. Put my notes. We're going to close that one. I'm not going to save it because I already have my thing saved, and we can close that. So sometimes when we have a nice bird in a really boring sky, we can change the sky, as we know, in Photoshop as well as in Luminar and other products. But we can also use a gradient to just add just a little bit of color to our sky. So again, I'm going to go back and add a gradient fill layer. And then I'm going to click in here. And I'm going to go to my ones for this class. I'm going to get my mouse in position here. And I'm going to use this kind of blue to yellow. And I should probably delete some of these because I'm getting a couple of repeat ones here. So we have this kind of blue to yellow color, which is one of my sky gradients. And we'll say, okay. Actually, this one came from Media Loop. I take that back. And we can close this panel because I want the blue on the top. And for this one, I used a blending mode of darken. I like the way that that worked with the background. Now, of course, this is a case where we don't want the gradient on the bird because it makes our bird do weird things. And I also lowered the opacity of this just a little bit, about 85. Okay, so for now, I'm going to turn off the visibility of this for a second so I can make a good selection of my bird, highlight the bird layer. And I'm going to grab my quick selection tool and say select subject and let Photoshop start doing the work for me. And it does a pretty decent job. I did, when I did this before, spend a whole lot of time really getting all of the little parts of the feathers. And you can, I have the the tool set to add. So you would just, kind of add to that selection. Make sure we got all those selected. That's a pretty good job for now. No, we missed a little bit up here. Let's grab the back of the bird and a little bit of his head. Okay. So now to add our layer mask, I'm going to turn this layer back on and click on my mask and just do an Alt backspace. Oh, first I got to make sure my foreground color is black and do an Alt backspace. And there is our mask that we just created. And I'll do a Control D to deselect. I'm on a PC, so it's Control. If you're on a Mac, it's Command and the letter. And so now we have our bird separate. Now, we don't have any of the gradient on our bird right now. So he kind of stands out a little bit too much, I think, from the background. He would have a hint of color probably on him, reflecting some of the sky. So the way we can do that, and this works with any mask on anything, if you double click in the mask itself, it opens up a properties panel and you have a density slider. So that's like opacity of the mask. So right now we're at 100%. That means we're seeing none of that gradient on our bird. But we could bring that back a little bit and add just a hint of color. We don't want to add too much because we don't want him to get really blue like it was looking before. But just lowering it a little bit just makes him blend a little bit better with the background and makes it look more realistic. And that's how you can, and if you did that and you lowered the density, let's go 50% just so you can see. You'll see how the mask gets lighter because it's a less dense mask, so it's not at 100% anymore. But for this, I would probably go about 87-ish, somewhere around there. So it's just slightly less than solid black. And that's how you can use a gradient on a sky. Any question?
I never knew what density was. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, it works just like opacity. If you think of it the same thing, it's doing the same thing. It's just saying that that mask is now less dense. It's not 100% density. It's just a little bit less, but it works like opacity. Alrighty, close this guy. So another way we can do some sky coloring. So this one has some clouds in it, but they're sort of, a little boring. And I wanted to jazz up the color a little bit on this one. So one more time, we're going to open up our gradient and select in here. And we're going to come down here. And we're going to use this kind of teal one here, this cobalt color. So we're going to select that, say OK, and then we're going to reverse this one because I want the darker color at the top. All right. So this one we are going to change to soft light. And I'm going to bring the opacity down to about 48. So now I like what this has done to the sky. You can see the before and the after, but I don't like what it's done to the building, of course. So again, we're going to do some work on that. And you'll notice by having this like whitish color at the bottom, it's brightening my grass as well as adding the color to the sky. So we're going to modify that a little bit too, because I think that's a little too bright. All right, so first we're going to come in here and we're going to reopen that gradient and we're going to modify it a little bit. So this is when you can see there are quite a few different stops in here. So because I don't like the way the white has brightened my grass, I'm going to change that to 50% gray so that it would be a neutral color and it won't affect the grass at all. So I'm going to change these last two stops. So we're going to click in here, and neutral gray, the hex number for it is 808080. And you can see there's my little cursor right there. So we're going to say OK. We're going to click this one 808080. That's okay. And now you can see our grass is back to the way it looked before. It's not so bright anymore. And let's see. All right, what else do I want to do? So I also want my blue to come a little bit further down on the page to add enough color to the down to the horizon. So we can also move these color stops. So this one that is in the center, I'm going to move this to the right a little bit and pull that color down further. Actually, we might move this one a little bit too. So once I click here, you see that there are numbers, and that's, you know, from 0 to 100 across here. So you know exactly where these are landing. And I'm going to move this over to like 80 on that one. And so now it's brought it down a little bit more. I can move this over a little more fully to my horizon line. And if I wanted to darken down a little bit, I could pull this one just a hair. And that's going to bring more of that greenish color, the teal color down. All right, so let's say okay. And okay. And now you can see, if you look at our grass, it's not changing. It's still that neutral gray. Now we're just going to deal with this old shed. So we are going to click in our selection to get to our selection tool. So we're going to go back to this layer and do that same thing. Start with the select subject. I always find it's a good way to start, and then you can always add or delete as needed, but it kind of saves some time. And I'm also going to go ahead and mask over here, I think. And that would really have solved the problem of the grass getting lighter, but sometimes I like to make sure things are exactly the way I want them to be. So we're going to click on our mask and do, and when you fill us, like we're filling here with this selection color, I'm using Alt Backspace on a Mac. Oh, because I hid the layer. I didn't turn it back on. I'm using Alt Backspace on a Mac. That's Option Delete. Okay. All right. So again, now we have no color. Control D to deselect. No color on our barn. And I don't think I really need to add any back to this one. I think that is looking okay. It doesn't seem like it sticks out too much. It's too bright. So I would leave that one as is. Okay. Any questions on that one? All right. So we're going to show you one more dramatic way you can use a gradient. So this was an image I took in Mount Moriah Cemetery in Philadelphia. And I did obviously change the sky and I added a lightning bolt. But I want to add some really dramatic color to this one. So you can see that was my original image before I did anything to it. So I did some editing and I changed the sky, and that's where we're at now. So we're going to go ahead and here, do our gradient. And I don't know if I put this one down here or not. No, we're going to go up to my pink, purple, blue set, and we're going to use purple, blue, and teal. So we're going to use that one. And we're going to say, okay. I want the purple on top, so I'm going to reverse that one. And in this case, I'm going to uncheck the box that says align with layer because I want to move this around some. Okay, I don't want it to just stay square to my image. And I'm going to change my angle to 62. No, actually I want, just the way, yep, that's the way I want. So I want the purple here and the teal down here. And I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to change my blending mode to multiply, which is a darkening blending mode. And then lower this to about there. And then I also added a brightness and contrast adjustment layer because I wanted to brighten this up a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and add that. And I brightened this a little bit and added some more contrast. And say, okay, close that. So now that we have this done, if we wanted to move these colors and shift them easily a little bit, we can reopen this because it is a separate layer, and we can, because we've used this gradient over here, you can see you're automatically on the move tool once you open this box. So I can just click and drag this layer, and you can see how the purple is coming down farther. So you can move this and kind of dial it in exactly where you want it to be. And it's going to keep it. That's why we uncheck that align with layer, because it's going to keep it expanded across this whole thing without just keeping it confined to that rectangle. Any questions on that? So you can move it to get the color exactly where you want it to be.
So are you actually moving a square around?
I'm moving the gradient, this gradient here because I've had that high. See how I can move that purple way down, or I can move the green up higher. Just by moving that back and forth, it's letting me control that gradient.
Is that because you have the fit to document?
Because I have, yeah, that align with layer is not checked. Okay. So it's letting me move it beyond the confines of that, the photo itself.
Thank you.
Charles says, does Lightroom have gradient capabilities? I believe it does. I have to say I don't use Lightroom as much as I used to, just because of my particular workflow and because I'm usually working on creative projects like this with other software. So I tend to do more in Photoshop. But I believe they do. You can't do layers in Lightroom, but I do think they do have some gradients in there. I know they do, because I remember somebody showing me how to do like a radial gradient. So yes, I don't know if you can import all of, have a full gradient palette, but I think you can do some of it there. I'll have to actually check that out myself. Like I said, I really haven't been using Lightroom a lot other than for cataloging, but I usually just come right into Photoshop. Okay, so we're going to close that one. So now we're going to switch up, and I'm going to show you the difference to a gradient map. So as we've been working with these gradients, you see how it's applying a wash of color, right? It's applying that color equally across the image as far as intensity. When we use a gradient map, it's going to make the darkest colors of the gradient affect the darkest colors of our image, and the lightest colors of the gradient will map to the lightest colors of our image. So I'm going to create a sepia tone out of this one. So we're going to go up here, and I'm going to select gradient map. You can also access it from the black and white circle. And again, you can ignore whatever it automatically just loads up there. So I'm going to actually cancel that first. I want to show you something else before I do that. So sometimes when I'm using something like this to create a monotone look, I find you may get a better result if you first change the image to a black and white, so that the gradient is not being affected by the colors of your image. So I'm just going to add a black and white adjustment layer, which you could also do with a gradient map, but we're going to do it here because I want to adjust my colors individually. So this is based on the colors in the image. it's going to, brighten or darken particular colors. You can see if I move that around. And I'm going to go there, a little bit more green. Cyan is okay. Blue, I'm going to really pull down because I want to add some darkness to that sky, get more detail in my clouds. And magenta is fine. So now we'll say okay. So now we'll do our gradient map. And we're going to create our own sepia gradient for this. I do have some saved, but I want to show you again how you can create your own. So we're just going to select the color bar. And because I had black and white as my foreground and background is why I selected black and white here. So it works for your foreground background colors. But again, if we click on the left color box, we're going to click in color. And on this side, because I've done these before, I have the number written down, but 231 F17. So we've got a darker brown. And then over here, instead of white, I want it to be EBD7B0. And say okay. So we can say okay. So now you can see we have our gradient, or sorry, our sepia tone based on our gradient. But you can see how the darkest part of this gradient is on the darkest parts of our image. It's not just an equal wash where if this were a gradient instead of a gradient map, it would be just like dark brown to the light brown the way we've been doing the other projects, and it would not give you that same sepia kind of a tone. And if you decide you want to modify those colors a little bit, go back in here, reopen the color box, and we could, I might want to go a little bit darker, maybe there. And on this side, maybe a little bit lighter. Say okay. So you can always go back in and change it again. You're not limited to what you pick the first time. And again, you could name it and save it. I won't do that because I already have this one saved. We'll say okay. And then you can always, and I find sometimes with gradients in these gradient maps, you need to do that brightness and contrast adjustment to, maybe it needs to be brightened a little bit, just that little extra punch, and typically a little bit more contrast as well to really accent those darker areas. So that is a gradient map. Any questions on how that works? Okay. So along with doing a monotone like this, say a sepia, we can also do something like a duotone. So I'm going to open up this one. And again, I'm going to start with a black and white adjustment layer. And I'm going to make reds here. I'm going to brighten up my yellows a little bit. Greens. Bring the, again, bring the blues down a little bit. I want to add a little more drama to that sky. And bring that there. Then we're going to do our gradient map. And in here, and let's see, I think I have this one saved down here. Okay. This kind of, that's not really the one I want. Let's go up here to my duotones by Spoon Graphics. It's another great site for some resources. And all of these are on the resource sheet that will get posted in a little bit. So I'm going to use number, kind of this plum to green. Up at 17, 19. That's the one I want. And we're going to say okay. So again, and this kind of illustrates it even more clearly because we have two colors. So that darker tone is going to all those darker areas of the image, even within the grass. And then the lighter, like greenish color is going to map to those lightest areas. And then the middle, maps to the different tones throughout your image. And I'm also going to do some brightness and contrast on here. And we're going to brighten this just a little bit and add some more contrast. Just gives it a little bit more punch, I think. If we do before that and after it, gives it that little extra contrast and brightening. Any questions? I love playing around with these just to, when you want to do something different to an image. I think it's a really cool way, to utilize different tones in your image. And again, you can do more than two colors. These are duotones, so that means it's two colored, but there are lots of different things you can do. So this one, I'm going to show you my original image and then what I did to it before we add that right now. This was just a quick snapshot at a farm, in fall, a bunch of pumpkins, and I took it into Smart Photo Editor, which is another cool little program, and created a pencil sketch effect. So I decided I wanted to now add some color to this. So I'm going to use my gradient map, and this is already black and white, so I don't need to do a black and white layer. So we're going to click in here, and we're going to create our own from here. So we'll just click here, click on color, F3, FC0. Ooh, that's not right. Oh, that's supposed to be on the right side. Okay, I take that back. Let's undo that. Cancel that. Oh, because I don't want to start with that one. I want to start with one of mine. Okay. I'm like, that doesn't work. Let's go to our citrus gradients, and I'm going to use my orange splash. Citrus orange splash. We hover over it. It should tell us the name, or we can click on it. That's what I want, orange lemon. Okay, we're going to say okay, and then we're going to reverse it. I don't think I want to reverse it. I'm going to lighten those yellows though. I like the orange here. So we're going to play with this one. So we're going to click on our left stop. And I'm going to drag this over because I want the orange to go farther into this image. So I'm just going to move that over to the middle. And you can see now we've just made this all orange. And then we're going to go into the lighter color. And then I'm going to click on this one. And now I can use that color number, F3, EFC0. So I'm going to start there, and I think I want to go even lighter, kind of not quite white, but just a little hint of kind of a creamy color. So, okay. And okay. And okay. And one more time with the brightness and contrast. In this case, I'm going to bring the brightness down a hair, but I'm going to bring the contrast up. Heidi asked what the app was I used to create the pencil sketch. It's Smart Photo Editor, and I can show you it in a second. It has literally thousands of effects in there. You can do basic editing in it, but I love it for taking a texture, creating new textures. I do that a lot for my Sunday samplers. And then it has some sketching type effects. I'll show it to you real quick in a second. it's a fun program and it's very inexpensive. It's also on my resource list. It's as a standalone, it's $29.95. If you want to use it as a plugin, which I prefer, it's $49.95, and that's a one-time price. And they've never released a upgrade because the effects in there are created by users of the product. So it's constantly getting new effects added. The first time you use it, like on a particular day, when you close it, it will do a quick run through and like look for new things and update anything. And that's it. I mean, it's literally a one-time fee and you never have to pay for it again. So that's unique in that respect as well. I learned about that program years ago from Mike Moats because that's all he uses on his photos. He does not use Photoshop. He does not use Lightroom. He uses Smart Photo Editor. And that's all he does his really cool stuff with. Okay, so that is what we can do with something that's kind of a sketch effect. And this would be a great, one for a card, or, if you're doing a Halloween party, use it as a background. And say you wanted to use this like as a flyer. Another thing you could do with this would be so that you could see writing over top of it. I might let's add a blank layer, and I'm going to change my foreground color to white, and then do an Alt backspace and fill this layer with white. And I'm doing this off the cuff to kind of see how this works. And then maybe just bring down that the white to kind of give it more of a shadowy effect, so that it's, again, if you put some writing on here, it would show up better. So this would be good like for a background on a flyer or a card or something. But you could also do like a happy Halloween or whatever up top without that. But that's a way you could kind of make the whole thing like fade a little, add some white over top of it. So I love to experiment with things like that and go, okay, this is what I want to do. How am I going to get there? And the more you play with this stuff, the more you kind of think about it. Sometimes I try things, they don't work, and then you just try something else. So let's close that one, close that one. And I mentioned using things to change my textures. Well, I use Smart Photo Editor sometimes if I wanted to totally change the look of things, but you can also use a gradient map or a gradient to change colors of a texture and create something new. So we're going to do a gradient map. And we're going to go in here. I'm not going to change it to black and white first. This one we're going to go down to my metallics. And this Pretty Webs Gold. She has some nice ones. So you can see how some of these have lots of different color stops. So if I click on one, this one's got 4, but it kind of goes from dark to light to dark to light. And then you have some that are very, very different. And I haven't found a good use for some of these yet, but it's interesting to see how people have created some of these. I'm actually going to use Gold 1. And this could be complete at this point, or you could, play around with moving some of the stops. If you move it to the right, it's going to brighten a color. If you move it to the left, it's going to darken a color, or maybe change where it's interacting. So there's lots of fun things you can do. So you could create something like that. So let's say, okay. And if we did add a black and white underneath, let's see if it changes this one. So let's close that. So under here, in between, I want to do we're going to do it with a gradient map this time. Do a gradient map and do black to white. So I'm going to reverse this because we want the black on the left side. And so that's the black and white, and then that's that color. So you can see how in this case, I think it's better without the black and white, because it really kind of blows out some of these areas and loses the details in there. Some areas are brighter, some are darker. So in this case, I don't think the black and white really helps it. I would probably do a little bit of a brightness adjustment on that one. So we're going to turn that one off. And let's see if instead of using a black and white adjustment layer, if we do, or the black and white gradient, if we do the black and white adjustment layer, where it lets us adjust those colors. So let's try moving this. So red's good. Yellows, I'm going to move all the way to 100. And greens we're going to bring down just a hair. Cyans, brighten. And blues. And magentas we'll leave there. So you can see here, it's a lot different than if we use that one. Actually, the two together look pretty good. So here we got a lot less detail. So that's the advantage of when creating a black and white, even just in general, to use the black and white adjustment layer instead of the gradient map in this case. Because you can control each of the individual colors, the brightness and darkness, and I would probably tweak this if I wanted a black and white. That actually works okay alone, but with the gold on top of it, I like that one better. So again, it's a lot of, playing around and kind of seeing what combination of things sometimes work better. Any questions on that? So
I'm not familiar. I've never used gradient maps, period, and then have not used them, or have. What would you use this piece for?
This is a texture that I would apply over an image. So that's what this is one of my textures I created with brushes in Photoshop.
Okay.
I do a lot of texture work. That's kind of my thing, what I'm kind of known for. And you can apply textures kind of the way we did here. Let's see, I could put this, I don't know if I have the right photo to put it on, but let's add it to this barn image that we had. All right, so say I wanted to put a texture on here, and we'll use that one just as a test. So I'm just going to, I can drag it in from my other screen, but if you're working on one monitor, if you do a file, place embedded, and then we'll go to our folder and select our, so this will bring it in the same way. It's going to bring it in on a separate layer, and then we will stretch it to cover our image. And then this is where the blending mode and opacity come into play. So you can see, what it will do to an image. Again, this isn't one I would necessarily use with this image. I would probably use some tan, grungy kind of a texture, but just so you can see what it will do.
Okay. So
Okay.
you're oftentimes using these gradient maps with textures that are going on top of another photo.
Sometimes, or like we did when we created the sepia look here or the duotone on the car, they can be used to create other, creative looks to your images.
Sure, yeah. Thank you.
Again, this one was just an example of how you can, create other textures from that one texture, if you wanted to change the color of a texture.
Hazel,
Yes.
did you get Wayne's question about if there are he asked if there are some tutorials you might recommend?
Oh, I did not see that. Thank you. Actually, glad you asked. In the resource sheet that will be distributed to you guys, there are a couple of videos that I found helpful. One is from Falern. He has a ton of different things out there. 5 beautiful effects with gradients, sun flare, light rays, and background coloring. And then there's another one by Blake Rudis from F64 Academy of gradients versus gradient maps. So kind of what I did tonight, but everybody explains things a little different, so that might give you more clarity. And both of those videos come with some free gradients as well. And then I have some resources. Actually, I just noticed I need to update this sheet because one of the sources I have is Design Cuts. They're one of my favorite places to order things from. Unfortunately, they closed shop earlier this year, so that one is no longer an option. I do have sets on my website available for purchase, and you can buy multiple gradient sets and it saves you money. And then if you don't already get my blog, excuse me, if you sign up for that, the link is on here as well as on my contact sheet that you'll be getting. Like I said, I only blog twice a week. And on Sundays, I give away free textures. And then when I find those deals, like the ones from Resource Boy or other sources, I list freebies of things on there as well. And also, there's a section for like articles on photography in general and shooting, and then Photoshop, Lightroom, could be iPhones, whatever I come across for that week. I get different newsletters and things that recap things. So I share those informational things as well as what's going on with my business. Okay, let's show you Smart Photo Editor real quick. Any other questions on gradients? That's kind of my end of this presentation.
I have a question, but it's for
Sure.
Bruce or maybe Julie.
Okay.
On applying these textures at gradient maps, what does that mean for competition? Anything? Is that more of a open category or what would that fall under?
I was thinking about that too. I think it should be under miscellaneous.
It'd be under, yes, which we're uh, thinking of renaming to something more like artistic technical miscellaneous.
Yeah.
That I think that brings, but right now it would go straight under open miscellaneous, is my recommendation.
I know with with the majority of clubs that I've worked with, and also for PSA, and if you're in any regional conference type things and compete, if you use a texture on an image, it has to be your own. So you wouldn't put this texture on an image you're putting in competition. For the most part, that's the general rule. Gradients are a little different because those are available in Photoshop and you can easily make your own and modify ones that are out there. So I would think gradients are a little bit more flexible because you can easily create your own for that. And add them to your image because there are gradients in Photoshop. So that's what I've come across and kind of my take on it. Of course, every club has their own rules and categories and things like that. So let's open this one up and I'll see I don't know if I can find the same preset, but we'll give you an effect of what Smart Photo Editor can do. So I always duplicate my background layer because Smart Photo Editor does not make its own layer. And if I don't like something, then I still want my original there. So it's under the filter menu. It's by Anthropics and Smart Photo Editor. And again, these are all of your kind of basic editing controls. I find Photoshop better for that kind of stuff. I said I just use it mostly to use the creative effects, and that is under this effects gallery. And you will see that this is page 1 of 695.
Oh.
There are over 8,000 presets in here, but we can narrow these down. So you don't have to look through 695 pages because you'd be here all day. Depending what you're looking to do with your image, if you wanted to work with light effects, colors, detail, I tend to come in here mostly for the artist effects, where you can do I like the watercolor category the best, or under styles, I will often use the antique or grunge category. And there are some other cool ones too, retro, gothic. Those are the ones I use the most often. There are some borders in here. You can also do triptychs in here if you wanted to do some creative stuff like that. You can create different moods. So there's a lot of neat things, and it will narrow things down for you. Let's see if I went into, let's check the pencil ones. And you can see here's where you could find some of those sketch type effects. And you just hit the arrow. This only has 9 pages in here. And it may very well have been under another category, but I figured this would be a logical place to start. Yeah, these aren't really looking like what I'm looking for. So we could come back over, and I'd probably go to, let's try ink and see what we get. Oh, that looks like it might be similar to what I had. So once you find one that you would like, you click on it and say, okay. And then each effect, depending how it was created by the, the maker of it, you could have a few controls here, or you could have a lot of controls like this one does. Usually when there's a border, that's the padded area. If you don't want the border, you can just take that down to 0. So it gets rid of that. Typically, I don't use the borders that come with things. And then you could kind of try playing around with the sliders and see if you wanted this to be lighter, like mine was, a little more, kind of white in the center, not as much detail. You could play around. I'm sure I found one that was pretty much like that, but again, you can, depending on the effect, try something that you like, or we can undo it and go back in here and just come back to the menu. And
Hazel, this is Heidi. Can you really quickly? I'm sorry, sure. You're really good, and I'm really, really low skilled at Photoshop. But was this in Photoshop? I know you're at Smartphone Editor.
Yes.
Go back the 2 steps you got to get there, because I wasn't able to write them down.
That's okay. So first I just duplicated my layer.
Okay.
And then you find it, because I have the plugin version, the $49 version, go under Filter, Anthropics, and choose Smart Photo Editor, and that will launch it as a separate window. Okay. And then you could come in here.
I got it. Okay. I just wanted this.
Try something different. Go into watercolor. Yep. So once you find something you like, we'll just pick something different. We'll say, okay, we like it. And then to go back to Photoshop, you go File, Save and Return.
So if Heidi wanted to use this without using Photoshop, she would just get the desktop version and not a plugin?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And you could do the same thing. I actually have, I think, both on here.
Is there a phone version of it?
No.
Okay,
no, it's only for computers.
I thought it was a phone app. Okay, thank you.
No, this is so I have the studio version. I probably checked the other one off. But you would just open the standalone. It would be an icon like that you can put on your desktop, and then add your photo directly from your browser rather than coming from Photoshop.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. The phone app Snapseed has a grunge mode. So I clicked that, so I'm like, hey, that sounds familiar. So that's very cool. Okay, thank you so much.
Snapseed is great. I use that a lot too. It has lots of cool things in there. In fact, one of my other seminars I do is on creative iPhone or smartphone apps, because most of them are Android as well.
Thank you.
So maybe next year you can have me come do that one. But there's so many different things you can do, with your work. And I love that creative aspect of it. Some people, yes, I like a great photograph as well. Let me stop sharing and we can chat. Actually, let me put up one last slide first.
Hazel?
Yes.
There is a question from Mina about Smart Photo Editor. Do you want to read that?
Yes. It is not included with Photoshop. It's a separate purchase. It's not created. It's created by Anthropics is the company, not Adobe. So the plugin lets you access it from Photoshop by going to that filter menu in Anthropics and its Smart Photo Editor. If you get the the standalone version, you would not access it through Photoshop. That's when you would just go straight to your desktop and launch it. You would have, everything would be the same except that you launch it from your desktop and not from Photoshop. Because I like to do lots of different things with my images, I like using it as a plugin. It's just works with my workflow better. But if you wanted, and you could get the lower version if you wanted to try it, and then you could upgrade to the other one just for basically the difference in price. So you don't have to like rebuy it. If you decide you want the plugin version later on, you can upgrade from there.
Hazel, have you found any use within Smart Photo for portraiture work?
Hmm. That's a good question. I don't do a lot of portraits, so I probably haven't really looked for any in there. I would think there would be some things you could use and then maybe, like mask it off of a face or something, but you could do
Hmm.
some creative stuff with the backgrounds that way. Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And that's when it would be great to have it from Photoshop so that you can, have that on a separate layer and mask it off where you don't want it to be.
right. Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good idea. Yeah, you could even do it with like pet portraits or things like that. Sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So again, you're going to see some of this info come over to you later. My blog, my website. We mentioned our creative photography conference. It is virtual. The next one is coming up June 21st and 22nd. Right now, we're still at the early bird price of $49 till the end of May, and then it goes to $59. And we have 8 speakers, 13 hours of seminars over the 2 days. You get speaker notes, virtual goodie bag with some discounts and freebies. We get over $2,500 in door prizes from various software companies. You might even win Smart Photo Editor. No, I don't usually have that one, but I do have HonNEC and some other software. And then you get access to the recordings for 60 days. So you can, if you can't watch it all live, or you want to watch something again. Amy just asked that question. Yes, there are. And you can, check all the details are on my website and in my blog and newsletter. And then you can, I'm going to be announcing fall workshops. I just finished all my spring workshops. I have one set up for Sedona in September, and I'm going to be doing some others, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia area in October. And you can just check out all my stuff when you have time. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a lot from this. Let me stop sharing my screen and say hi. And any other questions I can answer for anybody.
I think we've got lots of thank yous in the
I
chat.
do see that.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I appreciate that.
For not knowing anything about gradient map, I at least have an idea. I appreciate both the gradient just on top of using the different textures, and then the gradient map where it actually interacts a little bit more with the
Correct. Yeah, with the tones of your image. Yeah, the gradients are great, like when you want to do that, color in a sky or just warm up or cool down an image or that type of a thing. And then the gradient maps really let you get creative and add colors to your image. To do a sepia, it's an easy way to do a sepia or any other monotone kind of look or duotones or anything else.
Terrific. I'm going to stop the recording and stop recording.